You are listening to a highly efficient episode 108 of the Unnecessary Nonsense podcast. There's no tagline. I'm Carlos, that's Dave.
Solid, man.
Hey, listen, we're being highly efficient today. No taglines, no witty quips, straight to the business at hand.
Do we still get the intro? Like our, da 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 or whatever the music is?
What intro are you talking about?
Did we not get the...
Never question me. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so quickly, just in the spirit of time. So Dave has, now he has a new kid, so he will be ruining 2 lives instead of just 1. Not counting his wife, her life is already ruined, but she signed on for this. But the point is, in that vein, I have no pity for her. She signed on for this. The point is that, and she was warned by everyone, in writing, through various videos, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, another story for another day. Let's save some time. The point is that we did get a chance to watch a little bit of some of the wrestling stuff leading up to it. I want to mostly talk about, the focus is going to be mainly on the AEW Rampage episode, because we both got a chance to watch it in the wee hours of the morning. Dave, because he's allegedly taking care of children. It's probably the drinking. And me, because I'm a night owl and I was doing a ridiculously long live stream, which ended super late anyway. But either way, the end result is the same. We both got the chance to watch the episode. But leading into it, AEW is winding itself into it. And I'll touch on the post-Rampage press conference that I got a chance to watch. Now, the big news coming out of Rampage, CM Punk has joined All Elite Wrestling. Obviously, that's the big news story. I got a chance to watch it only a couple of hours after it occurred on the, through the PVR. But I also paid attention to YouTube where, they put up clips. So they put on the clip of his promo and, they broke it up into 2 pieces. First, the introduction piece, and then the promo where he's talking a little bit. But the thing is that even within a couple of hours at the end of the show, it was already up to like 500, 600,000 views on YouTube. And now, and this as of this morning and early afternoon, it was already at like 2.5, almost 3 million views on YouTube. Needless to say, it set the wrestling world. Are you ready for it? Are you?
I'm ready. I'm so
ready
for
this. And it did, because it was the speculation piece that everyone kind of knew, but it had been teased so many times by so many organizations, and there have been so many false reports that, he's about to sign with so-and-so, and he's about to go and do this, he's about to go and do that. And it was like, boy who cried wolf. Everybody was like, we're pretty sure you're promising this, but you haven't promised it, but you booked the United Center in Chicago, which is a bigger venue than normally you run. You didn't advertise anything for it. You called it the first dance. And Tony Khan and CM Punk alluded to it at the end, where basically the best way Tony Khan described it, he goes, like, look, we wanted people to understand what we were doing here, but we also wanted to leave a little bit of an element of surprise. We wanted to leave, like, there has to be like a fragment of doubt in your mind, but at the same time, we kind of told you exactly what we were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
We wanted to toe that line between, like, look, we've left so many hints. All the breadcrumbs have been leading to this point, but we did everything short of explicitly announcing it prior to you tuned in, and you got what you asked for. And it was right at the beginning of the show.
Exactly.
But just before that, real quick, the weeks leading up into it, obviously there's some other storylines and things that are going into. I think I'll cover them more in depth maybe next week, because I'll kind of keep following along with it. We did get the end of the story with the the labors of Jericho, and it ended with MJF winning. Shock of shocks, no shocks at all.
I think though, I wasn't necessarily as shocked, but I think there were a lot of people that were shocked, that expected, like the crowd expected Jericho to win that. That he would survive, finish all 5 labors, which he obviously finished them, but then actually come out victorious.
Sure. But it's one of those things like, I'm always in the same spot, right? Jericho is almost 50 years old.
Correct.
It's a nice idea. And
he is. I think he is actually 50.
Yeah, he might be. But then the question is, like, what's the next step then? Because MJF is a really good villain. Like, he's an excellent villain. And
he's only 25.
Yeah, that's what
Chris Jericho is 50.
Yeah. So, but it's also one of those things like, there's 150 things you could do with MJF going forward. And at some point, he's going to be world champion. Like, he's going to get that title. So
for sure.
So it's like,
it only makes sense as long as he's with the company.
Yeah.
He is their top heel.
Yeah. At some point, though, he has to get his run with it. And you have to find, you can't just keep him occupied forever. There has to be some story that is going to lead to him eventually putting himself in a position. It won't be right away, but like, you have to find something else for him to do, basically, is what you need. You're looking for. Something to keep him prominent, but at the same time, leave him in a position where he can do it. And in this case, beating Jericho, again, because technically Jericho has never defeated MJF in a one-on-one match. And that's kind of the story that they've been going with. And Jericho might, it kind of lets Jericho do some other things for now. I expect all those little feuds leading off of the Pinnacle and the
Inner Circle.
Inner Circle. I expect all those feuds to be winding down if they haven't already.
Sorry, did I tell you my Pinnacle story?
You have a Pinnacle story.
I do, because I was like, I feel like that Carlos was controlling the universe for this story.
I do control the universe.
All right, so you ready for this?
Go ahead.
So I'm at a donut shop in Hamilton, and
Were you trying to find the donut to buy tops?
no, but maybe next time they might have it. It's possible at this donut place, but it's at the It's a corner of a fairly busy street, and then a one-way street, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, since the pandemic and they've opened, they're only doing they have a takeout window, so it's kind of like a drive-through, but you have to walk through.
Sure.
All right. So I've ordered my stuff. And one of the things I ordered was a milkshake, so I'm waiting for it. So I'm sitting down on a bench and I'm waiting for it. And I'm, people watching as I'm waiting and stuff. And there's people coming up. And then all of a sudden, these people come up in like really fancy. I guess they were doing a photo shoot, but they came in this really fancy gear, which was not like anything else. And I'm kind of looking at the couple, and I'm looking at the guy, and I'm thinking, man, he really gives off an MJF vibe. Like it just has that vibe to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like 30 seconds after I had that thought, a van with the word Pinnacle like emblazoned across the side turned onto the one-way street and drove past us. I was like, I don't know. That's a sign for something. I'm not sure what, but the universe is trying to tell me something. Maybe it's watch more AEW.
Dave to AEW confirmed.
yeah. Dave is all elite. Sure. That'd be pretty cool. Photoshop job there, but
listen,
don't think it's gonna happen.
Listen, there's a role. If there's a role for Brandon Cutler to be basically the dorky lackey, Dave.
Hey, I would do it.
If I was ever gonna have a dorky lackey, Carlos to all elite confirmed. If I was ever gonna have a dorky lackey, you, my friend, are that dorky lackey.
Thank you. I think
you're the first person that I would think of. No question, no doubts.
I appreciate it.
I would have picked Ogilvy, but he's somewhat unreliable. You just never know.
And,
you just never know
possibly dead.
He might be. I'd argue he died years ago. I might have witnessed it, allegedly.
It's true, sorry.
But the body keeps moving. Zombification is a thing. Anyway, The point is, but yeah, I'm glad that they're starting to wind down those storylines. Bottom line, I'm glad they're starting to wind them down. I kind of want to see some, fresh matchups and things, and that'll kind of play into what we'll talk about with their AEW Rampage thing. I do feel I never try to give too much praise because obviously no company's perfect. But I do feel like All Elite has been hitting the right moves. And as we said, they try not to throw everything into one show. They do try to spread it out a little bit, which is wise. You're not going to overexpose somebody if you don't throw them in your face every single segment. But you keep certain people prominent. You keep them at least around.
Well, I mean, you have a huge roster now.
You do.
But now you have the 3 or 4 shows.
So technically,
are Dark and Elevation several shows?
They are, but they're on YouTube. But what happens is they're on TV. You've got the 2 shows. So you've got the 2-hour show and the 1-hour show. And the advantage of doing that is that it means you can spread people out. You don't have to have the same person on 2 shows. Ideally, you never have somebody wrestle on consecutive shows unless there's a good reason for it. And what you do, though, is you can use AEW Dark and Elevation to kind of keep things going. Now, if there's a big storyline element, since you're recording everything, you can reference it on Dynamite. You can say, hey, on AEW Dark. You're also encouraging people to go check out the other shows.
For sure.
Yeah, you say, hey, by the way, on AEW Dark, this happened. Blah, blah, blah. This guy hit him with a chair and now he's injured or whatever. You can play angles and do all that kind of thing if you wish. Or you can stick mostly to wrestling. And it lets everybody get on, some kind of a platform so they're seen. So that's usually good. But overall, everything seems to be leading. And now, obviously, the build is coming up now. And this will play into Rampage. Now the build is going to be into All Out. The one other quick piece that I'll say just leading into it, they did a really good job with the pair of shows in Pittsburgh. Or Britsburg. So Britt Baker got her big moment, having the match against Red Velvet. One thing that stood out to me, really great job in building up and selling the visual of it. They knew that Britt Baker was going to get the hero's welcome. She's been a bad guy this whole time, but not in Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, she's not going to be the bad guy. So don't force it. Don't try to be anything other than you're not. She should come out and celebrate and get the cheer and do the whole thing. I will say, though, I was very impressed that Red Velvet got a complete full entrance right from the inside. And the song she's got is really good, I think, for the personality and things. Red Velvet was nobody like a year ago. Mm-hmm. Like I had never heard of her. I'd never seen her before, but progressively. And she was basically Brandy Rhodes' lackey. She was effectively just kind of hanging around helping Brandy Rhodes with stuff. until Brandy Rose got pregnant and she went away from maternity leave and stuff. But then Red Velvet kind of got to hang around, have some matches, have some wins, and they slowly built her up. And she's got personality. So it's one of those things where now when you put her in this position, she was able to go there and she can go in the ring. So she was able to produce a good match there as well and work with it. And it was all culminating in Britt Baker winning the match and then introducing her new enforcer, Jamie Hayter.
Yes.
Who definitely looks the part. She looks like she's taller than I think the other women there in the ring. Not all of them, but taller than most of them. And apparently, from what I understand, she's really good, and she's been doing a lot of she does stuff in the UK. Is previously what she was doing, but she definitely looks the part of the enforcer, and it gives
sure.
and it kind of plays into Britt Baker. Britt Baker's still a heel. She needs to stay that way. So she's gonna have that enforcer to like help her, because Reba, no, not Rebel. I'll reverse that actually, but Rebel, not Reba. But she shouldn't, she does help try to cheat, but then Jamie Hayter can be the muscle if it's really necessary to be like, no, I'm going to beat you up too.
Yep, for sure.
Which works really well. And I think it makes a lot of sense. So the point is her character keeps progressing. So that's very good. And they do still kind of remain some consistency. That's what makes it very funny is that Tony Schiavone is technically, he's an announcer, he's a good guy, but who does Britt Baker get along with? Tony Schiavone.
Yeah, exactly. That's
everybody else crapped on Tony Schiavone, but it's like Britt Baker. It's like, but it wouldn't make any sense at this point if you tried to do it otherwise. Because when she won the title, who was there? Who was there at the end to give her a hug?
Yeah.
So it's like you can't then pretend that isn't a thing. It's like,
yeah, no, for sure. You gotta go with, what's there, right, and what the audience is expecting and knows.
Yeah, but it's also one other thing that I've always said, and this is the last I'll say of this until we get into it later on, on future episodes. But the point is, I like the logical storyline element of even the bad guys can have friends. It doesn't like it. Even the bad guys. Whenever you're writing drama, if you're writing a piece of work, a bad guy doesn't mean they're villainous in everything they do. They can be doing villainous things, but they can also be doing villainous things thinking they're doing the thing they need to be. They can think they're fully justified in their own mind. That is a character trait that a bad guy can have. And in reality, the best bad guys believe they're the good guy in the story. They genuinely believe to their core that, no, I'm the hero of the story. What I'm doing is justified and right. For whatever reason, I believe this to be true. I genuinely believe, and that makes them an even more effective bad guy because they're not a cartoon character version of a bad guy. And in this case, if you're friends with them and you guys get along, the fact that you're the bad guy doesn't change anything. It's like, well, bad guys can have friends too. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be like always, hired help. It can be sometimes like, no, they hang out and they get along and the rest of it is like swept under the rug and you just live with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But so as I said, don't fight it too hard. It makes more logical sense to if it's there, just play with it. Just stick with what you got. Tony Schiavone will interview Britt Baker, and he'll have a little bit of favoritism, and you can play that into the storyline. It can still make sense with everything else. You can still make
for sure.
Now, leading past that leads us into AEW Rampage. They did a good job with all the build-up, got everything to it. Everybody pretty much knew CM Punk was coming. They had the signs, people were there, they were ready. At the beginning of the show, they were chanting it right away. They sent him out there right away. They didn't mess around.
Which was smart.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take away from everything else you do if you didn't put him out there first.
Yeah. And if you think about it, Rampage, technically, they had a good match. The tag team match was pretty good.
It was.
Jade was just an exhibition. It's basically a squash match to get her over. It was just continuing
it's too bad because I like her.
Yeah, but she isn't seasoned enough. She needs those squash matches to establish that she is dominant, but then she still needs to get more ring time on her own to keep harnessing. She looks the part.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
She's not in position yet. Basically, you keep her just busy like this. You only have a wrestler on TV every couple of weeks, but then have her do a promo here and there with her smarmy manager. And then that's how you keep her. It's the same thing to do with Miro. Miro doesn't wrestle every week, but he's usually got a promo if he's not wrestling.
Yeah,
and he'll say like, I'm going to deal with so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. And I want you. But it keeps him. Oh yeah. We never forget he's around.
Correct.
Because you keep letting us know, at least reminding us, he's got one of the titles, so he should be present.
Yeah, he's got the TNT title. So
yeah, even if he's not going to be in the ring, we should know he's around. We shouldn't forget him, and that's important. The other thing I was going to say real quick about that is that you've got that, and then the way Rampage is structured, you only really have room for 3 matches. So the squash match keeps your timeline shorter. The tag team match got more time, and then what was the other match? I'm trying to remember now.
It was the John Moxley.
Oh, yes. And that was not a squash match, but it was a good exhibition for the young guy. the young guy he was facing, who's done some good work. He actually got some kudos in the post press conference because people have been enjoying what he's been doing leading into this. And Moxley is a star and main event star, so the fact he got to be on the show with a main event star and have himself a little match, obviously Moxley was going to win, but it doesn't change the fact that the kid still got to have some offense. He got to look good. It helps him build him going forward. He won in a loss because people didn't know who he was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, but this is where AEW has done a very good job taking like, oh, who the hell's that guy? We'll give him a couple of weeks. Let's see if you still don't know who he is. Well, now some people know who he is. Ask Red Velvet. She got to be in the main event in a championship match where it got all the attention. There was a ton of attention on that match. People enjoyed it. The result was correct, but Red Velvet got a main event out of it.
Yep.
Good for her.
Yeah.
And I could see her down the road challenging again. Like she.
No, I think
probably run
generally speaking, their booking, AEW's booking in general has been really great, right? Like they know what they're doing, and obviously you can quibble with and nitpick things here or there, but in terms of the storylines and the matches they're giving you, right? I can't argue with that.
Yeah, I think their biggest strength has been that a good percentage of the roster has something to do. Not 100%, because you'll never get 100%. It's too hard to try to have that many conflicting and simultaneous storylines. But there's a lot of folks who have stuff on the go. And you can go back like, okay, let's continue this story this week. Oh, yeah, that's right. They're doing this thing. And then they're doing this thing. And even the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle, like, it's like 4 distinct feuds now. So, like, they were all progressing in their own way. Like, they were all in factions, and they were fighting as factions, but now they're fighting as individuals. But they each have their own. That's like 4 consecutive.
Yeah, but you can go back to the faction at any point.
Correct.
And still have it make sense.
Yeah. So that's like, it allows you to spread it out. John Moxley has been doing this and that, but at least for a couple of weeks here, he got annoyed by these guys, and now he fought them again, and blah blah blah. And you can play with that. Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus now are doing their thing, their quest to become tag team champions. So they got something to do. Miro is praising the Lord, talking about his flexible wife, and beating people up. Everybody's got something to do.
Yeah, and now you're going to get CM Punk and Darby Allin at All Out.
Correct.
Which hopefully will be a good match. It'll be interesting to see. You know what I mean? That's the one thing, because it'll be interesting to see what CM Punk is like in the ring after 7 years, right?
Yes.
Because they're all hype and he's back and everyone's like, whoa. And I mean, they killed what they did last night. Like, he killed the promo, he killed the entrance. AEW did everything right last night, right? But eventually the man has to wrestle, and we'll see. I expect him to be more than competent, but you never know, right? Because it's been so long.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the advantage that he has, well, don't forget, Christian was away for 7 years too.
That's true. And he's doing a good job too.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Christian is 47. CM Punk's 42. So the 7 years, Punk was able to go back and get physically healed up. Because Punk technically, for a wrestler, traditionally, a professional wrestler, once they start hitting their mid to late 30s and early 40s, that's their prime. Because at that point, they have experience to go along with the understanding of what they're doing, to go along with maybe they've harnessed how to work the microphone and do. CM Punk was always very good at that. But by that point in the person's career, they've logged enough time in the ring where it's like, okay, you know what you're doing. You get how to do this. You understand the psychology of it, what we're trying to do here. In addition to, you're not so old that you're unless you're perennially injured, that's different. But if you're not broken down, you're at a stage where you have the experience and you're not fully broken down. Later on, you have even more experience, but now you're broken down.
Yeah.
So there's a sweet spot there. And CM Punk's still within that sweet spot. And not being in the ring the last 7 years is actually 7 years less wear and tear.
This is true.
Which does help.
And it seems like, I mean, obviously I don't know, I didn't watch all the press conference, but everything's been coming out. He seems mentally in a much better place.
Yes.
As well, right? Yes, physically, and that's important, obviously, but the mental part it seems to be there as well.
Absolutely. And I'll touch a little bit on the press conference bit in a bit. But let me ask you this question. You already said you liked it. Did you, as someone who may not have all the references, did you catch some of the little, basically the point he was trying to get across when he sat down, finally did the cross-legged thing to sit down and explain the whole professional wrestling thing and talked about the dates? Did that?
I'm familiar with the dates and that, because that's been talked about in the lead up too. Right, you're referring to like his time with Ring of Honor and then the Summer Punk and yeah.
So basically, the
only thing I didn't get was the ice cream reference.
Okay, let me explain that. So here's the thing. So first, you had the dates. So when he left Ring of Honor, then he goes to WWE. So he never references WWE by name. But he basically says when he left Ring of Honor, he left professional wrestling. There's your little dig, WWE. But then he says, like, now I'm back in professional wrestling. Dig, WWE. Take that. The point is that stylistically, AEW is a lot closer to Ring of Honor and that kind of thing. And that was kind of one of the parallels he was drawing. He goes, when I left Ring of Honor, it was a style of professional wrestling that, emphasized this type of in ring. It emphasized the younger performers and emphasized some of the stuff. And then he goes to WWE. Obviously, that's not the way they operate over there. And then the way they run their storylines doesn't operate there that way either. And he does allude to this in the press conference a little bit too. He goes, the biggest difference, in all honesty, is just that when you're doing it that way, it's more like acting. The other way, it's still acting, but you've tethered it into some element of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, you usually get a more effective result. So that's kind of the angle he took on that. The other thing is it kind of fit into this neat little character arc of him coming back and everything. And on the press conference piece, and I'll touch on it now, the press conference piece, he emphasized that part of his goal is to get some fresh matchups. It's to get in there and participate with some of the younger talent. Darby Allin was identified by him and Tony Khan as one of the ones that he both saw him as being a potential interesting matchup with. So for him, it's somebody's never wrestled before. Darby Allin runs around. He's a daredevil. He'll throw his own body around. And it's one of those things where CM Punk's job at that point is just to kind of like position himself in the right place, and Darby Allin will sell for him. That's not an issue, because he generally, his style is to get beat up. So CM Punk will get plenty of offense because that's a Darby Allin style anyway. So it's one of those things where he can look like $1 million just because Darby Allin will sell everything that he's doing. They just have to build a smart match. And they've got a couple of weeks to do that, which again is very smart. In the meantime, CM Punk's on the microphone. He knows how to do that.
Yeah,
so he
for
can
sure.
so he can sell the match, and at the same time, this is where it's kind of funny because they did an interview with Roman Reigns, and he kind of either in his persona or at the behest of WWE kind of downplayed CM Punk's drawing power. And then afterwards they're like, some of the podcasters in YouTube was like, so he doesn't have any drawing power, but they sold out the United Center with nothing promoted, on the illusion that perhaps CM Punk will show up tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you look kind of like a moron.
No, and the crowd reaction, like the pop to CM Punk was unreal, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing now. Granted, I had the sound down a little bit because people are sleeping, but as I said, I was watching at 3 a.m. while feeding a baby. But I didn't realize that Call to Personality was playing. I didn't until I went back, and I've seen some things on Instagram or clips of it, right? Mm-hmm. But when I watched it live, I didn't hear the song. Okay. Because the all I heard was the crowd.
Yeah. No, exactly, and you're right. The way it was is that the crowd was loud enough that they actually drowned out the song, but they did use the Cult of Personality song, which is a good move. He's associated with it at this point. People know this, but like I said, we'll give Tony Khan credit on this. He is very clearly a wrestling fan.
Absolutely.
And if you get a chance to see this press conference, I may send you a link so you can check it out on your own. But what I would suggest to you is listen to what the questions asked. Yes, pay attention to Tony Khan's face. He's the guy who runs this company, but he looks legitimately excited to be there answering questions about this, because for him it's like he had apparently been talking to CM Punk about this going back to 2018. He had been slowly chipping away, having conversation after conversation. He basically had to over time sell that, hey, I'm sincere. I really do want you to come in. I think we could do some great things. I've got ideas, blah blah blah. But it wasn't like one conversation. It was almost 3 years of chipping away at it and talking him into the concept. And then once he got to the point that he was comfortable with it, he goes, it seems to me, and and CM Punk did give a story about it. He goes, it was a lot of things, but one of the things that kind of convinced me, and he goes, it's a sad story to say, is what happened with Brody Lee when he passed away. Nobody knew he was sick. So even though the company knew he was sick, nobody outside knew he was sick. It was kept in-house. The expectation being that it's your life, it's your privacy. You don't need to be answering questions about this. All it said is that he is, he's off right now, and they left it quiet until obviously he passed away, and then you're not going to hide that. But it was one of those things where like he was allowed to get the medical help he needed. They did everything they needed to do, but nobody knew the extent of the issue until after the fact. And then when the wife was comfortable talking about it, then people could talk about it.
Right.
but that was a luxury given to them, which doesn't always happen in a lot. If it was in WWE, there'd be 5,000 articles about it and 3,000 YouTube videos, and probably WWE would release half of them.
Yeah.
So like they'll tell everybody and their brother. So it's one of those things where a different style of working with your talent. So basically, that helped convince him that, hey, maybe this makes sense for me. And there's some opportunities, some fresh matchups, some interesting, compelling possibilities. And he gets input into his own creative. So that obviously is appealing.
For sure.
That's going to play into it as well, because then he can kind of figure out what makes sense and what he'd like to do, and they can kind of collaborate. So bottom line is that Tony Khan's style is very appealing to a guy like CM Punk. And we haven't even talked about Daniel Bryan yet.
Yeah.
Who, by all accounts, is also
the get. This is a huge get, though. Like, let's be real, and I think it's bigger than Daniel Bryan, right? Or anybody else.
It is.
Right now.
Keep something in mind. The Daniel Bryan piece may have actually happened first, and it may have led into the second one.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah, but because the timing with the CM Punk thing worked. But don't forget, under the right circumstances, you can use the Daniel Bryan as a 1-2 punch. Because Daniel Bryan also built up, like I said, he was the main event of WrestleMania 33.
Yeah, I would expect
WrestleMania 30.
I would expect him to make an appearance or at least something would happen for All Out if he's going to be there.
It's possible. The one that I hear is they've got a show coming up in New York in Arthur Ashe Stadium.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you could position it where you lead this with Punk into
that
All
makes
Out.
sense too. Yep,
and
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why I say 1-2 punch. Don't blow your entire plan. Some beautiful plans you got going here. Use this, ride the momentum into All Out, and then just as people are coming down from that, hit him with the 2. Because then you get to ride even more momentum. You get to extend because people haven't seen these guys in this capacity in a long time. So it's an opportunity to be like, you can extend this, and in the meantime, the rest of the roster gets to reap the benefits too. More eyeballs on the product means, oh, you get to see Miro. Oh, I remember him. He was good.
Yep. Or some of these people that have only ever worked in AEW.
Correct.
Or maybe worked some indies and then worked AEW, right? Yeah. Like you're getting to see people who are legit stars, right? Like you're MJF. Darby Allin, right? Jungle Boy, like these people, right?
Yeah. So the idea here is to use these big names who are drawing eyeballs to your product. If you think about this really, like if you really take it to its core, CM Punk was the draw on Friday night. He's the reason that people tuned in. He's the reason they sold the tickets. But what did you get to see? Did you see a mirror match?
No.
Did you see Darby Allin wrestle on that one?
No.
Did you see MJF?
No.
You saw Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. You got to see Private Party. You did see the Young Bucks, but they were on the side taunting. They weren't in the ring. You got to see Jungle Boy. You got to see Luchasaurus. You got to see Jade. You got to see, I keep forgetting the third match. Oh, Moxley. Taking on the young guy. But Moxley's a name, but you had him facing a young guy. The point is, aside from John Moxley, you were promoting almost all younger guys who, if you weren't familiar with AEW, you have no idea who the hell they are.
Yeah, it's true. But you got good matches. That's the thing. Like if you like professional wrestling, right, you got a good show.
Correct.
Right? I was not watching wrestling, that was my hiatus, if you will, when Punk was big with WWE, right? But I felt that, like watching it.
Correct.
Right. That was, I wasn't like crying and like some of the people on the thing, and I wasn't that, but it was emotional because it was huge. The pop was so big and people were like, oh my God. And even me, I was like, oh my God, it's Punk, even though we pretty much knew he was coming out. Yep. And I'm not a huge, I'm not a huge CM Punk fan by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not against him, but I was like, for me, I was like, this is pretty cool. Right. And I, as I talked to you ahead of time, I was like, I got to watch this. Yep. It's on TV. It's here. I don't have to worry about, finding it online afterwards. I'm watching this at 3 a.m. Now, granted, I was up anyway, but I'm watching this at 3 a.m. because I'm expecting something big to happen, and it did, and it didn't disappoint.
Correct.
And that's sorry, because this will make one of the final points I make, because I know we're getting close to the time here for me, but that's the key about this, right? Is that I expected, most people going in expected Punk was going to be there.
Yes.
Right. It wasn't really, when he came out, there was no surprise. Right. But so everyone is expecting a certain thing to happen. What's going to happen. It happens, and they blow it out of the water in an amazing way anyway. Yeah. Right? That's when you have a good product.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key, though, one of the things you just hit on, though, is that you didn't have the familiarity with his work prior. But just watching the opening segment, the audience told you it was a big deal.
Yeah,
Even if
for
you
sure.
didn't know, you don't know who this guy is from Adam. Even if you've never seen the guy before, you're relatively new to professional wrestling. When he comes out there and 15,000 people are screaming his name, you're like, he must be a big deal because 15,000 people are freaking out at the sight of the guy.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like this dude, this thin rail dude in a hoodie. What the hell? Like, but the point is, that's how the audience told you it's a big deal. Their reaction told you this is a big deal because look at how excited they are. He dove into the crowd. He basically was doing like crowd surfing for a moment there. The point is, and he was hugging people all the way along the side. The audience told you it was a big deal without you didn't hear the commentators, if you notice, for the most part, during the entire build up to that. You didn't get any part of that. So it's one of those things where the idea, though, is that that's a cue. To the newer people in the audience, it's an easy cue.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
the commentary didn't say anything because sometimes the commentary in WWE, the commentary tends to over talk during the moment. If the moment is happening, sometimes it's good. Like, just don't say anything. Just chill out, relax, let the moment happen. Because if you just listen to the crowd is telling you that something big is happening. You don't need to over explain it. And sometimes it's good to resist that urge.
Yeah,
And they
for
did.
sure.
And they had a veteran commentary crew that is like, no, right now our job is to shut up. Just let it play out and let people see what's happening and they'll get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that brings the eyeballs in. And then the three matches are showcases predominantly for young wrestlers who may not have had the exposure. And they did what they were supposed to do. It was a tight 1 hour show. The first 20 minutes of it was basically the promo. The rest was 40 minutes of tight wrestling matches. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. Everybody goes home happy.
Mm-hmm.
And John Moxley was in the main event. He is a name who people are at least familiar with. And he got the win at the end. And they did the celebration and everything. Even Darby Allin was there at the end with Sting. Like they got the people that, oh yeah, I know who Sting is. Yeah, okay, I'm a little bit more familiar with Darby Allin. I know who Moxley is. But even in defeat, the young guys got a little bit of a boost. Great. Good job. You were able to showcase them, and you left most of your names off the show, and you were still able to showcase the young
Yeah.
guys in what's
Overall,
probably going to
great.
be. I want to see what the result is. They're probably going to get over 1 million views on the Friday night.
I would think so.
Yeah, which is a huge, and the bigger it is, even the more impressive it'll be. But it's like on a Friday night at 10 p.m.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not a great time slot, and yet if you get a great crowd, good job by them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So real quick, last thought on this that I'll give as well is just that now leading out of this, what I'm going to be curious about is how they do intend to use it. If they do intend to go with we'll see if the Daniel Bryan thing becomes official. If it does, though, it's a great 1-2 punch for those guys. From what I understand, formerly Ruby Riott, may also be joining the women's division sooner rather than later. So it's one of those things like they're stocking up the different areas. That women's division is looking a lot healthier than it's been at any other point. Like they're adding Jamie Hayter, from everything I've heard, is really good. You've just added her to the division. Ruby Soho is what she's going by now. That's going to be interesting. Malachi Black is going to be on Dynamite. You know, they're using him sparingly. They're taking advantage of the fact he's a mysterious dude. He shouldn't be showing up every week. Again, same thing.
Yep.
Great. But here's another one I'll leave you with. And I don't know if that's going to be to AEW or not. But formerly in WWE, Buddy Murphy, if you remember, I don't know if you saw any of the promos leading into Malachi Black coming in. Did you see the promo with him in like the mental institution or whatever?
No.
Okay, I'll give you the short version. And then I'll give you the ice cream story, and that's how we'll end it.
Okay.
So real quick, Malachi Black, formerly Aleister Black in WWE, he did some vignettes leading into him debuting in AEW. And in one of the vignettes, it's actually a continuation of a WWE storyline where his eye is black because Buddy Murphy put his eye into the stairs. Okay. So they actually carried on this storyline even though they were no longer WWE. So he's got this thing. When he debuts in AEW, he's got a black eye. It just continues so he's been continuous about this. But the joke is supposed to be that he's in this mental institution where he thinks, he's having these things going on with it. And he got it. And they said, why do you keep getting in the fight with the Zimis, especially so-and-so? And he goes, it's like, you mean Matthew? Blah, blah, blah. So they talk about all this. So they do this whole bit and it ends with Aleister Black escaping. And then Aleister Black shows up in AEW. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of it, they had actors playing the doctors and this whole thing. So they actually did it like a whole skit. It was a whole production and everything. Okay. Buddy Murphy, his 90-day non-compete is about to end. He, on his social medias, he has a vignette that showed up. He's had a pair of vignettes. The second vignette is him being removed from this mental institution. The doctor that is talking to the other guy is the same doctor from the Aleister Black one.
Okay.
He's the same actor.
Right.
Playing the same doctor.
Gotcha.
So basically, he's explaining this whole thing, and then basically this other guy is releasing him from there. He's no longer going by Buddy Murphy because WWE owns that. He's going by Buddy Matthews,
Okay.
and his name is actually Matthew. Are you getting my point?
Yep.
So like you're using the same actors in a similar type skit, and I did enjoy the Buddy Murphy one though because he did poke at them. He goes, "So you mean he's been here for 8 years?" It's like, "Yeah," and then they tacked on another 90 days.
Love it.
Digs, digs, digs. So we'll see. Buddy Murphy or Buddy Matthews now may end up showing up at AEW.
Yeah.
And he may have some history with Aleister Black because the two vignettes they're not in the same room at any point.
Yeah.
But they're making allusions to each other,
Which is
and they
kinda
got
cool.
the same doctor in the middle. So if anybody's just like, wait a minute, that's literally the same dude from the Aleister Black one,
Right.
playing the same role in the same kind of thing. Man, this prison has a lot of people that seem to want to get out of it. Isn't that weird?
Yeah,
By
exactly.
the way, before John Moxley debuted in New Japan and everything, his vignette, escaping a prison. Why does WWE get the prison metaphor? Everybody seems to want to escape this prison. Anyway, I just thought it was funny. And by using the same actor, though, makes it very interesting. I like that the guys are taking the initiative and building their own narrative around this. And the fans who are paying attention, they're like, wait a minute. Isn't that the same guy from the video done by the other guy? Interesting.
Yeah.
So it could be. They may use it, they may not. But either way, it's a good touch. It's a nice little nod. Hey, the tip of the hat. Because those two guys are friends, so they communicate, obviously. So
Exactly.
and probably they recommend
Exactly.
it. Okay, ice cream bar. Here's what we'll leave on this. The ice cream bar thing is a reference back to the Summer of Punk, back in 2011. Part of the deal was that his contract was ending. In one of the segments, he was negotiating with Mr. McMahon to renew his contract. Mr. McMahon was trying to get him to stick around, basically. Just in case he won the championship, he didn't want him to then scoot off with the title. So they were doing a negotiation.
Right.
And CM Punk was being belligerent, talking about all the other things. He goes, yes, more money, blah, 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 because he'd been offered more money and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, it's like, but you know what I want, Vince? I want some respect. And I want you to bring back the WWE ice cream bars. He was demanding the damn ice cream bars. And he kept saying, why can't we have the ice cream bars? It became like a little running joke with the ice cream bars. So then in the promo here in Chicago,
Nice.
He goes, it's like, and on your way out, have an ice cream bar on me. And then social media went, ablaze! And they're like, finally, after all these years, he finally got his damn ice cream bar. Because WWE actually had them.
I love it, actually.
WWE actually used to have those, and they would put the wrestlers on the ice cream bar, and they actually brought them back. And he actually wanted them to bring them back. They eventually did, but they never did a CM Punk one, so it probably double pissed him off. He goes, screw you then, I'm getting my own ice cream bar. So Tony Khan
exactly, right?
Yeah, so kudos to Tony Khan for delivering on the ice cream bar. That is a 10-year-old joke. That's a throwback, Dave. It took 10 years to get the freaking ice cream bar. Hey, listen.
That's pretty impressive.
Give them credit for the little details. Give them credit for hitting on the little details.
Yep.
So now you know the secret of the ice cream bar.
I love it.
Excellent. So anything else you want to toss in, or are we good on that?
No, I think we're good. I think
right.
we're good, Carlos.
Sounds good, guys. So while Dave is slowly figuring out how to ruin his children's lives, as he does, we'll have slightly shorter episodes, but they'll be a little bit tighter. There will be a little bit more focus similar to this. We'll focus maybe on a little bit of what's going on at AEW because honestly, it's kind of fun. And then when we get some more time down the road, we'll include some of the silliness banter and we'll make fun of our friends on the sly as we do previously. But otherwise, we'll keep it in this format for the next little while. If you got any comments or questions and you're watching the YouTube version, feel free to throw them in there. You can check it out. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, you can check us out on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast, and audio version will go up. Cool.
Sounds good.
All right.
We'll see you in the next one, Carlos.
Absolutely. So that's it for episode 108 of the Unnecessary Nonsense Podcast.